Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to show you how to use Excel to create a table of values for a specific function, and then also how to graph a function in Excel. Now you can do all of these things, create tables and graph a function in your graphing calculator, but I also want to show you how to do it in Excel because when you take statistics, you're going to be dealing with lots of different data sets and large data sets. So you want to be able to have a place to store your data. And Excel is a really great place to store data. And it also creates really nice graphs for us. So let's go to the problem set for chapter 2 and take a look at question 3. So here we're given a function for lidocaine. Where we're looking at the amount of lidocaine in a patient's bloodstream, and we call that A, over time, which is measured in minutes. So we have two variables here. We've got A and T, and then we have this beautiful function here for the amount of lidocaine in the bloodstream over time. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table of values and graph this function in Excel, and then of course you'll also want to graph this in your graphing calculator in order to answer the other questions for this problem. So let's go ahead and go to Excel. Now I'm using a MacBook Pro. So if you're on a PC, Excel might look a little bit different, but it shouldn't be too different. Okay, let's begin. So in Excel, your columns we're going to create vertical columns for our tables, so vertical tables, where the first column is going to represent your independent variable. So here, time is our independent variable, so I'm going to go ahead and just label that T. And your second column is usually your dependent variable. So here, that's going to be the amount of lidocaine, so I'll call that A, and I'll go ahead and bold it and center it. Okay, now I want to create a very specific table. So I want my table to skip count by increments of 20 minutes, but I want to start at 0. So what you're going to do is you're going to type in 0 for the second row here, and that's where your table is going to start. It's going to start at time t equals 0. Now what you can do is you can manually go in and skip count by 20, okay, until you get to 240 minutes. But that takes some time, so I'm going to show you a little trick in Excel. If you want this column here to skip count by 20, then what you're going to do is you're going to tell Excel to skip count by 20 for you, and you do that by always starting with an equal sign. So in Excel, the equal sign is doing calculations. Okay, so you always want to start with an equal sign anytime you want Excel to do any type of calculations. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell Excel to take this 0 value. So I'm going to just click on that cell. So you'll see it'll say A20. So the value that's in cell A, sorry, not A20, A2, in cell A2. And I want to take that value, which is 0, and I want to add 20 to it. So when you press enter, notice 20 shows up. Now I want Excel, so notice that when I click on this cell, the formula pops up here. And this is the formula line, the formula bar. Now I want to copy this formula all the way down till I get to 240. So you'll see there's this little green square on the bottom right-hand corner of the cell. If you take your mouse over it, and I'm going to just right click, I'm going to drag that down. And so what that's going to do, and you can already see, is it starts dragging the formula down. And notice that now my first column is skip counting by 20. And so that's really nice. If you want to skip count by, let's say, every 5 minutes, then you can change this equation and just say, have it add 5. If you want it to skip count by 2, you can say add 2. If you want it to skip count by, 3, you can say add 3. I think you get the idea. So since we only want to go up to 240 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and delete the 260 and, okay. And so now I have a table that goes from 0 to 240. Now, if you want to get fancy and you want to create borders around your cells, you can go to this little button up here and add a border. So you can see that makes it look a little bit nicer, and you can center it and do whatever you'd like. It's not important, but you can if you want to. Okay, now here's the important part. What we want to do now is we want to evaluate our function. So I want to take this equation. I want to take this equation here, A, and I want to figure out what A is when t is 0. I want to know what A is when t is 20. We want to know what is A when t is 40. So basically we want to evaluate this function so that we can figure out the amount of lidocaine that is left in the bloodstream, right, after every 20-minute increment. So to do that, right, now your calculator will do this as well, your graphing calculator, but how do we get Excel to do that? So to do it, we're going to start with the equal sign. And what you're going to do is you're going to type in the equation very similar to how you would type it into your graphing calculator. So again, you always start with the equal sign, and I'm going to type in the equation. So that's 32.89, okay? It's important to use parentheses here. So just like in your graphing calculator, in order to maintain orders of operation, you got to make sure you put parentheses where it's needed. Now, the difference between the letter E in Excel versus E in your calculator is in Excel, if I want to show that my function has the irrational number E, so in our function here we have this irrational number E and E here, and it's raised to an exponent. In Excel, to indicate E, you use capital EXP, okay? So EXP means the irrational number E, and we don't use the caret symbol to show the exponent. So instead, what we do is we use parentheses. So I'm going to use parentheses and put in the negative exponent. So negative 0.0075731. Okay. Now we're going to multiply it by t. But what is t? So I want to actually evaluate the equation when t is 0, when t is 20, when t is 40. So instead of typing in t, we're going to click on this cell. So notice that now it says multiply it times the value that is in cell A2. So it's going to take that, multiply it by 0, okay? Close your parentheses, and then we're going to do minus, and now we have to do minus another e. So that's EXP. And to raise the exponent, you got to put parentheses to show that you're raising it to the exponent. And again, negative 0.12043. And then we want to multiply it by t. And again, same thing. We want to evaluate the function when t is, right now, t is 0 in this row. So just click on that cell. Notice it pops up on the top here. And I'm going to close my parentheses. Okay, now notice that I had an open parentheses right here, so I got to make sure that I do a double parentheses at the end to close it completely. Now press enter. Oops, okay, what happened here? To accept the correction, click yes. Did I make a mistake somewhere here? 32, let me double check everything and make sure that I did not make a mistake. So I'm just going to accept the correction. All right, so I'm going to just click on and see. And I'm not quite sure what correction Excel needed to make, but just accept it. And then now I want to copy this formula down. Okay, so notice a little square in the corner. Just take it and drag it down, and you'll see that the values change. So look, notice what happens when I put my cell on the third row here. Look at the formula bar. So here it takes the function and it evaluates the function, but now it takes your t value and it corresponds with the row that you're in. So now it's multiplying that by A3. So A3 is the cell A3 and the value is 20. So it's just evaluated the function for you. Now I'm going to tell my workbook here to round these decimals, maybe just to like 2 places. So I'm going to go up here in this middle part of my toolbar, and here you can use the arrows to either add more decimal places or reduce your decimal places. So I just reduce them, and then now I'm just going to be a little fancy and center it and put borders around it. So there is my table of values. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take out your graphing calculator and evaluate the function and check the table and see if it matches up. Okay, so now that we have a table, the next thing I'm going to do is in the next video I'll show you how to make the graph.